I know. Do you want to just do Darth Vader and say, after the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, Darth Vader, and both do it at the same time? Right, yeah. Because we're talking about Star Wars, I say, on the count of 3, we both say our favourite Star Wars character. Good?
Alright.
Right, 1, 2, 3, Darth Vader! With his blaster-proof Mandalorian armour, rad wrist-mounted rocket launcher and kick-ass jetpack, Boba Fett is considered the premier bounty hunter of the Star Wars universe, which is weird because he doesn't actually do anything in the original trilogy except fall into a Sarlacc pit. Well, the expanded universe tried to correct that by saying that he did actually escape from that Sarlacc pit before promptly falling right back into it. If you've never fallen into the dark pit of despair known only as the Star Wars expanded universe, in a nutshell, if there is a character on screen in any of the films, regardless of how inconsequential they are to the overall plot, they will have about 80,000 words of backstory spread across various comics and novels.
That seems kind of stupid.
Well, no, it is true. Any character you can think of, they will have a ridiculous amount of backstory that no one really gives a shit about. For example, do you know the band in the cantina scene? According to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, they are called Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes, and they play a specific genre of alien music known as, and I'm not making this up, jizz. So when Luke and Obi-Wan walk into that bar, Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes are in the background breaking it down, just jizzing all over the audience.
What?
And I can say that, and it's not rude, and you can't censor it, because that is technically what is happening. Do you want to know a fun fact about the Cantina band as well? If you look at them, there's a really tall member who's clearly I think a foot taller than the rest. That is a guy called Robert Bettine, and he's one of the costume designers. Fun fact, he's also the guy who did all the effects on The Thing. He was a special effects artist. They brought him in to fill out that scene with masks and special effects. So basically just make anything you want, give all these aliens crazy stupid faces. And when he was done, they made him wear one of the masks, so he's one of the Cantina members.
That's pretty cool.
Uncredited, but we know it's him. Robert Bettine is a really interesting guy to look up. I recommend watching the backstory, the behind the scenes documentary for The Thing, which is one of the few things he actually appears in. And it's really interesting to see his dedication to his craft.
What was great about it was that John actually did give me a great opportunity to say, hey kid, go nuts.
When Disney bought Star Wars, they quite understandably decided to delete every fucking word of the expanded universe.
Why did they do that?
They didn't want to be hamstrung when they were writing the next movie. They thought, well, if we've either got to stick to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, which at this point is so convoluted after 30 years of novels and comics that haven't really been cross-referenced or checked, and there's so many inconsistencies, it's just easy to delete it and start again. So now the only things that are canon are the 6 mainline films, the new trilogy they're making, a couple of novels that Disney have released, the Clone Wars TV show, that one, and then whatever else Disney farts out, like the Han Solo movie. That's the one, yeah, that's the thing. But whatever else Disney decides to fart out. Everything else is now under the banner Star Wars Legends. So it's stuff that technically is no longer Star Wars canon, but is still kept and thing. It's just these are stories from the Star Wars universe, what if stories basically. Imagine if they tried to make a new movie and they said, well, where's Luke Skywalker? Because according to the expanded universe, he actually went to this planet and studied under this. And it's no, you don't want to fucking do that. And that's what they didn't want, so they thought just delete the entire lot. The only thing that's canon is the 6 mainline films, these little shitty things we've farted out. All the games, all the comics, all the novels, all no longer canonical except for the ones we put out. So they can have really strict control over where it goes, which you can't really blame them for, because as we're about to explain, some of the stuff that's in the expanded universe is fucking bullshit and it's hilarious. Well, that was probably a good call for Disney. It now makes Boba Fett canonically the shittiest character in the entire franchise.
I thought he was really popular.
He's a popular character, but he doesn't do anything. If you go back and watch the original trilogy, which now is canonically the only thing he appears in until they release the Boba Fett standalone movie in a couple of years' time, he has 5 lines of dialogue. He never actually does anything on screen except for have his jetpack malfunction after being beaten up by a blind guy. and fall into a giant sand vagina. It's just, he looks cool. So obviously when you remember the time those films came out, 70s and 80s, he was a really fucking cool looking action figure. Well, that's why Darth Vader was so popular. Darth Vader doesn't do all that much until like the final 2 movies. He just looks cool. And then think of like what Captain Phasma. Look at all the plays she got in the latest movie. She doesn't do fucking anything. She is the new Boba Fett. Because what does she do in the Force Awakens? Stands in the background of scenes looking awesome. And then gets pushed down a garbage chute.
What do we do with her? Is there a garbage chute?
That might as well be. There might as well be. So where does this garbage chute go? Oh, we put a Sarlacc down there. They might as well have done that. She doesn't do fucking anything either. Do you know the worst bit is? She's the same kind of thing as Boba Fett, where her backstory in the expanded universe is fucking awesome. Like Captain Phasma, if you think about it, she doesn't do anything in the film, neither does Boba Fett. But they never do anything to establish that they're cool, except for people around them with, man, they're really badass. It's like that guy in The Simpsons, the Japanese guy who just stood with his arms crossed. Oh, he's going to do something cool.
Oh, maybe we should go inside.
But Marge, that little guy hasn't done anything yet. Look at him. He's gonna do something, and you know it's gonna be good.
And he does it off screen. And you're always kind of upset that you never get to see what it is.
You mean like your Carlton down?
Oh yeah, no one will ever see that. That's hidden forever.
I'm sure it had more than 5 lines of dialogue though.
Not in the canon trilogy anymore. He did have more before that because his original appearance was in the Star Wars Holiday Special in a little cartoon they made.
You saved my life. Thank you. Maybe I can help you. I am Boba Fett. Follow me, friend.
Which probably highlights how shit he is that his first official appearance is in something so bad, George Lucas himself has said, I want this thing completely destroyed.
Come on, Mama, let's see a little smile. Come on. There, that's better.
I'm sure everyone's watching this is aware of the Star Wars Holiday Special. It was fucking god-awful. It aired only once, and George Lucas has gone on record as saying, if I had a hammer and enough time, I would destroy every copy of this in existence, because it was so bad he refused to release it on DVD or any version of the film that's been released, but fans still got a copy of it, and it's still floating around online. You can probably watch it on YouTube right now. It's awful, I wouldn't really recommend it.
Will you look at Lumpy? He's sure grown, huh? I think his voice has changed. Come on, I'm just teasing.
There was only one official copy in all of existence, and Joe owned it? Carrie Fisher. She's the only person known to have had an official copy from George Lucas, and she requested it personally. Do you know why? Playing it at the end of parties so people would leave. It's so bad that the only copies that exist are bootlegs except for that one, which itself is only rumoured to exist. Like Carrie Fisher jokingly said she had the only real copy.
We celebrate a day of peace.
To reiterate, along with being introduced in a piece of Star Wars media so embarrassingly bad the original creator never wants it to see the light of day, Boba Fett also suffers arguably the most embarrassing death in the entire trilogy, being killed by his own malfunctioning jetpack after being slapped in the back of the head by a blind guy and flying directly into the gaping maw of an entirely stationary creature. So that's bad, isn't it? Think, this is supposed to be the baddest ass bounty hunter in the entire galaxy, and he's killed by being eaten by a creature which literally cannot move. This is the hero of the trilogy. This is the thing people written so much fan fiction about. And the only thing he is now, the only official representation we have until his movie comes out is just him flying headfirst, flailing while screaming. So if he'd have just fallen into it by accident, that'd be. But it's more the fact he hits his head, then rolls down the side. So he has all that time to think about what he did. I imagine that the entire time he's rolling into that pit, he's thinking like, man, I wish I was cooler. So at least I look good. At least my action figures are going to look cool. That's why I love what Robot Chicken did with him.
How did you fall in?
What? Fell in? Volunteered? More like it.
I think that's the best representation of the character, where he's just so up his own ass, but he can't do anything.
At least he didn't go out like a punk.
Yeah. Oh, because I look like a badass.
That's what I think in his own head. He thinks he believes the hype, even though he doesn't actually do fucking anything. And we all know as well, because of the prequel trilogy, he's just a shit kid who watched his dad get killed by Samuel L. Jackson. Thing is though, that's the moment he hit puberty. Seeing something so metal, seeing Samuel L. Jackson behead your father with a sword made of lasers, immediately hit puberty and then the helmet lands on his head. From that moment on, he was Boba Fett. For some reason though, fans seemed to quite like Boba Fett and couldn't handle the fact he'd been killed by a giant sand vagina. Enter the expanded universe.
What happens to him in that?
Well, in the expanded universe, they say that after he fell into the Sarlacc pit, Boba Fett didn't die. Do you know why?
Why?
Because his penis was so big. Because he has got the biggest penis in the entire universe. So he didn't die when he fell into the Sarlacc pit and instead fought his way out, presumably beating the teeth of the Sarlacc away with his 3-foot long penis. Flies out, and do you know what happens to him then? He gets mistaken for a droid by some Jawas who overpower him. Remember, this is the greatest bounty hunter in the entire Star Wars universe, and drag him to a sand crawler. Do you know what happens to that sand crawler? It gets stuck. And do you know where it gets stuck? In a Sarlacc pit. But not just any Sarlacc pit, the same Sarlacc pit. So, just to sum up, Boba Fett escapes the Sarlacc pit, gets overpowered by some 3-foot tall aliens, and then falls straight back into the Sarlacc pit. Obviously, he escapes again, and he has many adventures, and he does all sorts of crazy bullshit.
Back from the dead, assholes! How about a little fire, Scarecrow? Take it like a man, Snowflake!
The fact that in the comics that supposedly says he survives, it's like they say within a week he falls straight back into it. In less than a week, the greatest bounty hunter in the world gets overpowered by a blind guy, some 3-foot tall aliens, and falls into a giant stationary hole in the ground twice, despite the fact he's got a jetpack. So how fucking bad is he at being a bounty hunter if, even though he has an additional axis of movement over every other character in the trilogy, he's the only one who falls into the giant hole in the ground twice? So at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the reason Disney deleted the entire expanded universe is to just save some face on Boba Fett's behalf, because it's somehow less embarrassing that he's now dead canonically and only fell into the Sarlacc once. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, why not like or leave a comment with your favourite Boba Fett quote below, because I'm sure there are plenty of them. Or subscribe for more content like this. I can't wait for the same fucking line over and over again.
I can't remember any of them.
He hasn't got any quotes because he's not a member. Like, the only thing he does is he looks cool. He doesn't have a single fucking line that's memorable. Bring up one of his quotes. So his first line on screen, as you wish, okay.
Yep. Second line, what if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
Wow. Listen to this rich backstory being built. Look at these legendary quotes.
The next one follows up. He's no good to me dead.
So you don't, no, he's fucking hell. Fourth line. No, it's put Han Solo in the cargo hold. My favourite line of Boba Fett dialogue. Ah! As he just falls. So Boba Fett has 5 lines of dialogue in the entire original trilogy. One of those lines of dialogue is him dying as he falls into the Sarlacc pit. So do you know what my favourite Boba Fett quote is? Ah! As he just dies. Because you know what? I think that sums up his character the best. That sums up the rich backstory of Boba Fett. Just screaming as he falls into a giant hole. That's so bad. I thought, I always knew he had 5 lines of dialogue. I didn't realise one of them was just him dying.
It says it is considered to be.
It's considered. That's because
they're grasping so much.
They're grasping at straw so much. They've got to, because 4 lines of dialogue would be embarrassing considering he appears in 2. Like that means in the second movie he don't have a single fucking line of dialogue except for dying. And he's still one of the most popular characters in the original trilogy. I'll be very surprised if he came back, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he came back. That would be hilarious if he just came back and they asked him, like, what happened? How'd you get out of the Sarlacc pit? Anyway, that's a story for a different day. I would not be at all surprised, though, if he comes back in the next movie. They are releasing a standalone movie.
Oh, yeah, but that's his past, isn't it? Not his...
And they've got a Han Solo. But I think what they will do is they potentially might even introduce him, and he'll just be like, I think he'll be in the background of a bar somewhere. Like they'll go into like a cantina scene or something like that. He'll be in the background and have like a robot arm or something like that, ordering a beer. And I just want to say, well, who's that guy? I was like, oh, don't mess with him. He fought his way out of Sarlacc, you know. I think what you should do is every adventure, they should have like an entire like series of films, and every film ends with him falling back into the Sarlacc pit.
Just like
It starts with him climbing his way back out. That's not going to happen again.
Hi, my name's Boba. I bet you're wondering how I got in this mess. Oh, you could have it's like a kids' TV show, like from the 80s.
Oh, and every episode he falls into it at the end.
Bye-bye!
It's like, and who's going to come out of the Sarlacc pit today? Oh, it's our friend Boba Fett.